Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for joining the Orthocell Limited webinar today. My name is Hayley Charters. I'm pleased to host today's session and to introduce to our speakers, Orthocell Chair, John van der Wielen, CEO and Managing Director, Paul Anderson, and special guest and independent Orthocell Board Director, Dr. Ravi Thadhani. Later on the line, we'll also be joined by Orthocell's Chief Financial Officer, Jim Piper. Shortly, they will provide a US market and operational update, including important insights into the US rollout of Remplir. Questions are invited and encouraged throughout the webinar. Should you wish to ask a question, please use the written Q&A facility at the bottom of your screen, and we will endeavour to answer as many questions as possible within the time allocated. Please welcome Orthocell Chair John van der Wielen together with Paul to get us started.
Great, thank you, Hayley, and good morning, everyone, and thanks for dialing in today. It's a pretty simple purpose, and that is to reaffirm the board's confidence in Orthocell's progress. And secondly, to ensure investors that the company's never been in a stronger position than it is today. So to support this, you'll hear from the founder and managing director, Paul Anderson, who'll provide an update with a specific focus on the operations and focus on the US market rollout. But I'm particularly pleased for the first time to have a US-based non-executive, Ravi Thadhani. In the background, Ravi's a respected physician, an accomplished medical researcher, and a very senior medical executive. Ravi holds a full-time role as the Chief Medical Officer at Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles. Not only is it one of the largest hospitals around the globe, it is also one of the most respected. And to put this into perspective, Cedars-Sinai in Los Angeles is larger than any hospital currently operating in Australia today. And Ravi brings his first-hand experience in navigating the pathways required for a US rollout. And Ravi chairs a specialist board committee that governs and supports Orthocell's US sales strategy and execution. I think importantly, I want to briefly address some recent share price volatility. Orthocell's share price has come under pressure in the recent weeks, but in our view, this has occurred without any fundamental change to the company's outlook on performance. Today's update is intended to provide that clarity on our progress. And I do want to address some of the inaccurate, I think sometimes spurious and misleading commentary that circulates on some of the online share platforms. So let me move on to the fundamentals. And a reminder, Orthocell has no debt, we have no royalty obligations, and we manufacture our own products here in Australia. This gives us full control over quality, supply, and margins. Australia currently sits in the lowest tier on USA tariffs for exports at a rate of 10%. And something that we probably haven't disclosed before is that Orthocell had already shipped 4,000 of our collagen devices into the US prior to the implementation of these tariffs. Our company holds close to $50 million in cash, and that excludes a $3 million refund from the R&D tax. Under our existing plans, cash reserves do not fall below $25 million, and that's after the funding of our expansion in manufacturing, the development of the new product pipelines, and a significant ramp up of marketing and sales activities into the US. And I want to assure you the Orthocell board would not have approved the manufacturing expansion without total confidence in the future sales, which are soon to also include the EU and the UK markets. Orthocell has now commenced the commercial sales of its collagen nerve product in the US, and each day we're seeing the adoption by new surgeons and hospitals. And as we've said consistently, the Australian market serves as our experience base for this rollout. And I think importantly to highlight today that we're in our third year of commercialisation in Australia. We estimate our market share in the nerve repair only market is about 10%. So this excludes the other use cases in areas like prostate and many other things we're finding for our product. In contrast, in the USA, a 1% market share of the nerve repair market would correspond to around 10,000 collagen devices. At that level, given our pricing and margins, Orthocell would become cash flow positive. And of course, we're aiming at a far higher than a 1% market share. And you can just imagine a replication of the Australian market share in our success here. We see absolutely no reason for that not to occur. But rolling out a medical device across a market as large and complex as the United States, 50 states, multiple licensing regimes, and diverse hospital system is a significant undertaking. Despite this, Orthocell has achieved FDA approval, shipped product, trained surgeons, and begun commercial rollout across the USA in a remarkably short time frame. And I know Ravi will highlight this, but we've had incredible pace to what we've delivered. We believe Orthocell today is a very stable, de-risked company with a bright outlook, and it's a better investment today than it's ever been. Also, please don't underestimate our 12% stake in Marine Biomedical, which is about to lodge its FDA 510K application for its bone substitute product. So I'd like to now hand you over to Paul Anderson to take you through the operations specific focus on the US. We'll hear from Ravi and take some questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, John, for that really succinct introduction, and thank you all for taking the time today to understand a little bit more about our US market and operational update. So thank you all for your kind attendance. Just a disclaimer. I think John's covered this really well, and that we're really in a commercialisation stage with Remplir, which is absolutely on track in regards to movement in the United States. This has been well supported by our activities here in Australia, and leaves us really in a position, having recently raised over $25 million worth of capital, that we're fully funded to invest in the growth that we see that lays ahead of us. The US Remplir strategy is absolutely on track. The market's access activity is continuing. I'm going to talk in really some detail as we go through the presentation about what that means and what the stage gates are that we've ticked and the ones that we have left to tick. And John really mentioned something which I think is a really salient point, is that 10,000 Remplir unit sales in the US takes us to a cash break-even position. So, considering we have 10% access into the market here in Australia, we're really confident about that next important phase. So by way of our vision, we now understand where our products lie. We now understand the specific advantages that they have. We really understand that the market's desiring of those. So our goal to be the forefront of regenerative medicine is absolutely achievable. Our goal to be an even more successful publicly listed company with sustainable growth is there. And so to do that, we really believe that winning in the Americas is absolute priority for us. Of course, we're going to continue to focus on our growth in Australia and New Zealand and Asia. It's been a really important foundation, but also to continue to build a global footprint, as we have done with registrations in Singapore, in Thailand, in Canada, in Hong Kong, and into the special economic zone there. So, continued growth in those markets, but we're really focused on that in the Americas. And to do that successfully, we've had to invest in people and capability to make sure that we have the systems, performance and analysis systems in place, to make sure that we have the people, the culture, to enable us to really capitalise on this very, very unique opportunity. So to support that, we've invested in an ERP system and business intelligence tools, enabling us to communicate globally with all our different integrators that we have, including logistics. And really important to note that we continue to scale our manufacturing facilities. We're going to talk a little bit about that as we go through, but automation of our manual tasks is really important to us, driving scale and reducing cost of sales. An upgrade to our current facility will take our capacity to some over 300,000 units per year, and we do that with great confidence, knowing about the exciting stages that we have in front of us. And of course, let's not forget we have an exciting pipeline technologies as well. So let's win in the Americas. And so to do that, we need to gain and continue to gain market access, get access to the payers, and grow our customer base as a result of that. And so we're doing that with great clarity, we're doing that with great execution, and we're really recruiting the right people, the talented, deepen our expertise to enable that we have this scalable growth that we're going to walk through. Whilst we've been busy putting all the foundations in place in the United States and starting to see sales come through now, it's really important to note that we've shown a 21% half-on-half growth and some 25% over the last half. And so we've continued to grow the business here in Australia and Asia. with a specific focus on product revenue, which has really seen this here. So once we start to see the US revenues added to this, it starts to become a really attractive picture from a revenue perspective. So what do we know about the American market? What we know is that by and large, it's dominated by sutures. The companies and the products that have come to market are old and tired and not specifically fit for purpose. And so a product like Remplir, which has the ultimate flexibility and compliancy, that is the only product in the world today that's designed to mimic the epidural tissue, has provided us with significantly improved consistency and predictability of outcomes. And that's something which is extremely attractive to the patients, it's extremely attractive to surgeons, and it's very attractive to the payers who see that we're getting consistent, predictable clinical outcome. We know that there's a very, very large market here, not just globally, but in the US. Over 700 peripheral repairs, nerve repairs performed annually every year in the US. We also know that the majority of those are done with sutures, a needle and a thread, which has been, been done for over 100 years. So we knew and we know that we can do better than that. And so when you start to look at this market with over 700,000 units in Australia performed every year, when we look at it here, the total estimated number of peripheral nerve repairs in Australia is around 25,000. We're currently looking on target for 4,500 to 5,000 units in this financial year, which gives us about a 10 to 12% market share. And so we've had nothing short of a spectacular product launch where surgeons have used our product, they've reused our product, and there's a lot of organic growth in this market. And so when we then translate that into the US market, we see that less than a 1% market penetration, some 10,000 units, drives us towards a cash flow positive. And so this is a really exciting phase for our company. We've put all the things in place to drive this growth, and we now find ourselves in a really fantastic position with early uptake and driving through these stage gates that are here. And I really wanted to demonstrate and show today that these stage gates are really, really important to get you access to the hospitals, that get you access to the payers, which is really important. So we know that you need to have regulatory and licensing. And so the FDA 510K application and approval in late April, early May was pivotal in that scenario. And then we go through the state licensing scenarios. So there's a bit of a dual approach there. You've got the countrywide and then statewide. And we're almost through all those states. I think we've got 5 states left to be approved. You also need to, at the same time, establish a sales and support infrastructure. These products don't sell themselves. So we've been working even before our FDA approval to make sure that infrastructure is in place. And I'll talk a little bit about that in a subsequent slide. Product awareness, surgeon engagement, and we've been involved in a cross-cultural and collaboration with United States, English and Australian surgeons, really working to help provide us with that surgeon engagement, which is driving the value assessment committees. Now, the value analysis committee is the committees that get you into the hospital, and so they assess your pricing and they assess your product. And so we've been very fortunate that we've been able to get through quite a number of those VAC committees, and they continue on. And of course, following that, you get your customer onboarding, your active accounts, and your loyalty and advocacy. And these are all active areas for us. And so where are we at? What can I say? We're here now. We've approved to sell in 45 states across the country. We now have 7 direct team members that we've hired in country. 16 distributors covering both East and West now, with recently appointed distributors in Los Angeles and San Diego. Our VACs that have been submitted are around 71. This is up from about 43 the last time we reported to the market. And so we've had, from those 71 submitted, we've had 27 VAC approvals, which gives us access to the payers within those hospitals. We have a growing number of customers who are repeat users, and a growing number of hospitals who are now using and have our product on shelves. And so this has been quite a rapid introduction of this technology. It's been a rapid uptake of surgeons, and it's a rapid uptake of distributors to sell this product. So we've been extremely excited about the foundations that we have in place. And I think it's really important to not just get my views here or my views on what we've been doing, but we're very fortunate to attend 3 of the largest peripheral nerve repair conferences in recent times in San Diego. These are some of the pictures taken of our team, of some of the surgeons, our training booth and our marketing. And so it was a real privilege to have Dr. Ravi Thadhani come down from LA to join us and to observe our processes, our practices, and help us in this process. So without further ado, I'd love to hand over now to Dr. Ravi Thadhani, who'll give us some insights into his experiences with us.
Thank you, Paul. I was fortunate to be able to attend the American Association of Hand Surgery meeting, as you said, together with the peripheral nerve meetings. This was a meeting of over 1,500 individuals that included surgeons, experts, clinicians, industry experts, and so forth. The meeting was filled with oral presentations, luncheon seminars, poster presentations, a terrific poster presentation by Orthocell, Professor Zhang, as well as a luncheon seminar. I was most interested in understanding what does the space look like, and I'll just summarize that. One is, there is no question in my mind that this is a huge unmet space. That is, surgeons and clinicians are looking for a product that's innovative and flexible, as Paul said, that meets the needs of peripheral nerve injury. I am not an expert in this field, but that was quite evident in this meeting. The luncheon seminar that Orthocell put on was attended by almost 100 individuals, all interested in the innovation in this space. Two, there are very few products in this space that meet that unmet medical need. And given what Paul has highlighted, I believe certainly Remplir does that. Paul talked about the team. It's an experienced team. You see some of those members here. They not only know the product, they know the peripheral nerve space, but most importantly, as Paul said, they also know hospital navigation. How do you navigate hospitals in the current environment, given the pressures that we face? And finally, the surgeons themselves, looking for that solution, were able to speak firsthand based on their own experience, and I believe were actually quite convincing. So I think based on, Paul, the science, the team, certainly I'm quite optimistic. I'm obviously focused on making sure that the product meets what it's supposed to do by the FDA, but also importantly addresses the needs for patients. And certainly this meeting, it was quite evident that was the case. So let me hand it over back to you, Paul.
Thanks, Ravi, for those comments. And I guess from my perspective also, it's so encouraging to have such high-level interactions with some of the best key opinion leaders in the world, to some of the best clinicians and practitioners in the world in this space, to have them repeatedly tell us that we've got something here, to have them repeatedly tell us that we have a product that's unique, that the scientific narrative resonates and is leaders in our pathways, is a deeply satisfying piece. And this is the foundation now for our commercial success into the United States. But you have to invest in that growth to do that. So we're now deploying some of the funds that we've raised recently around our capability in the US, and in particular our manufacturing capacity. Now, we spoke about domain knowledge and bringing that into the company, and the 7 people that we now have in the US really cover sales, medical education, clinical affairs, and marketing. And they bring collectively over 35 years experience in the nerve space. And so a number of these people have worked for Axygen, one of the competitors in the market previously. But beyond that, they know the nerve space. And so we've actively invested in this hybrid model where we have some direct employees and then we use a distributor model. The United States is a big place. And even when you look at the biggest companies in the world, the Bionets, the Strykers, the Smith & Nephews, they all have hybrid models where they have their own direct force that then works in with the distributor model, which has proven to be very successful outcomes. But what's really important as well is that we may, if we're selling the product, we need to make the product. And so really important that we own our own manufacturing processes. We own our own manufacturing margin. And we're now going through a really exciting phase where we're moving from about an 80,000 to 100,000 capacity right up to a 300,000 unit capacity. And we're doing that to secure a reliable supply chain for our products, to make sure that we've got the right inventory, to make sure that we've got the ability to ship into the US at will, and to make sure that we're also continually improving. We're scaling that through automation and through enabling us to reduce the number of manual handling. So this is a really exciting, for a laboratory nerd, this is a really exciting piece. The automation is something that's going to hold us in really good stead as we move into this really next exciting phase. We look back over the last year and we take a deep breath. It's been an incredible year for us with US FDA approval, continued success in the Australian marketplaces, first case in the US, first sales in the US, distributors being appointed across the US and in Canada. The appointment of distributors in Hong Kong, submissions into the EU and UK market, the second largest healthcare market in the world, and of course, as John mentioned, the marine biomedical investment. So that's an incredible body of work, one that we're now really leveraging in the United States and here in Australia. And we've really got a lot to look forward to, including an R&D tax refund, which is imminent, the initial prostate patient data, which we're very excited about. This is a great example of organic growth in our company. It's a great example of surgeons using our product for peripheral nerve in a really exciting area of radical prostatectomy or the removal of the prostate. So looking forward to that data. We're busily working towards appointment of a UK distributor to complement our EU approvals. Our first sales in Canada are imminent, and of course EU and UK market clearance in the middle of this year. So look, we couldn't be happier with the progress. We're really excited about the fact that we're in a hockey stick revenue scenario, a strongly commercial stage with market access continuing to grow. The product margins, we own our manufacturing, we hold those margins are fantastic, and is providing us with long-term benefits with regards to the cost of our goods. We've got a really strong board, and not just a strong board, but a really strong senior management team now that has great domain knowledge that's really driving us to be the best-in-class platform for not just for our nerve repair, but for our bone and tendon products that will follow, which have now been approved in over 9 international jurisdictions. So as John said, this is a de-risked company. We own our own technologies. We own our manufacturing. We've de-risked through preclinical and clinical work, and we now have approximately $50 million of reserves within the company to make sure that we're able to drive all of these programs forward in a really succinct and appropriate way. And so without further ado, I'd like to say thank you again, and I'll hand over to Haley to manage the questions. Thank you.
Thank you, gents. Lots to look forward to. We'll now move to the Q&A session. I also invite onto a line our recently appointed Chief Financial Officer, Jim Piper, to assist with any financial inquiries. Welcome, Jim. Again, if you'd like to ask a question, please use the Q&A button at the bottom of your screen, and they're coming in thick and fast at the moment. So first one to navigate, someone emailed from Jai earlier this week for Paul. He is seeking an update on Remplir use and success in prostatectomy surgery, given the company expanded its number of procedures beyond 100 for data gathered, without sharing a market update on the data analysis of results from its initial smaller number of surgeries.
Yeah, so let me give an update on that if I can. So obviously this is a really exciting space for us. Internationally, this has been validated through a number of very large studies. And so this is really driven by the clinicians to use our product within this space. We were aware of the space, but it came a little bit earlier than we expected. And that's really a testament to the great organic growth that we've seen with our product here in Australia. And so we're now going through the process of collecting that initial data. There are several steps that are involved in doing that. We're getting very close to finalising that. And so we're working with our surgeons and our patients and our ethics committees to make sure that we put all the right steps in place to be able to successfully launch and to articulate those results.
Great. Another one, Paul. Does Remplir have any applicable reimbursement codes in the US? Just seeking a progress update on insurance, CMS, Medicaid and Medicare reimbursement to assist patients with the costs of the procedure.
Yeah, so excellent question. It's a very complex field in the United States. What's really important to note is that the peripheral nerve repair procedures that we're doing have CPT codes, and so that gives us access to the payers through these hospitals. And so this is a ground that's been forged by the Axogens and the Integras in this world, and we're able to piggyback off the back of those.
And just the third one from Jai, capital allocation strategy for expansion, revenue and profitability in 2026. Can you provide an update on the manufacturing expansion? Example, size of expansion, when, duration, cost, etc. And really looking for an expected reduction in unit cost specifically.
Yeah, look, I'll just answer that in two parts. I'll answer first and then I'll defer to Jim as well. Look, you know, the facility that we have here in Australia, Western Australia, is a modular one. It enables us to build modules onto our current facility to expand our manufacturing scenarios. We're looking at the moment a capacity between 80 and 100,000 units. We're looking to expand that in our first stage of expansion to over 300,000, and that will secure us moving forward with this really exciting next phase in the US. So we understand very clearly what we need to do to automate. We understand very clearly what we need to do to expand our capacity to meet the demand and the needs that we're seeing in this exciting US marketplace. Jim, did you want to add something to that?
Thanks, Paul. I think majority of it's been answered in the slides that were presented. Obviously, we're looking at 5 to 5.5 million in capital. Obviously, that won't start until FY27, so you won't be seeing any cash or minimal cash expenditure in this financial year. As for the cost reductions, we're still working through that, but as we've said, with the addition of the automation and the reduction in ability to need to increase in operating staff, as we increase manufacturing, we should see the costs reduce per unit basis on a good scale.
Great, thanks, Jim. And just some further questions from Greg for you. Comparing the December 2025 quarterly with the September 2025 quarterly, it appears receipts from customers are down by approximately 1.1 million, yet the bar chart shows an increase. Can you help to explain this?
Yeah, thanks, Hayley. Our cash receipts for the quarter were 1.2 million compared to 3.2 million in revenue. The difference is explained by the normal timing and accounting factors. We received 1.2 million in cash during the quarter, and we saw 0.9 million increase in the trade debtors as revenue was recognised ahead of the cash collection. We also recorded 400 million in interest revenue and an additional 100 million in accrued interest, which had not yet been received in cash. In addition, we also account for 600,000 in related non-cash, which is amortization of our prepaid contract revenue, which is recognised as revenue under accounting standards. So these items fully reconcile on accrual-based revenue with cash receipts. I'd also like to note that our half-yearly results will be released later in the month, and we'll be endeavouring to provide more detail and additional context at that time.
Thanks, Jim. Just one more from Greg. He's seeking some clarity on staff costs that are double quarter on quarter as well.
Yeah, salaries and wages for the quarter were elevated due to timing and one-off employment-related payments. Some of these items were non-reoccurring and do not reflect our normal run rate. But as was presented, looking ahead, we're expecting salaries and wages costs to increase slightly or modestly during the investment cycle. So as we increase our capability and support that growth. So the planned uplift of the US team and other operating priorities, as discussed today.
Thank you. And some questions incoming from Jared on revenue and utilisation, probably for John or Paul. Can you please remind investors of the average selling price and gross margin in the US?
Look, I'll take that one, and importantly, we know investors would love to know the exact margin, the average selling price, but that actually is confidential data, and at an early stage of a biotech, the last thing we need is our competitors understanding our US pricing and margin strategy. So as keen as investors are to find that out, we're at the stage where we're first entering US and UK, EU markets. That's confidential information. But what I do want to assure investors of is our revenue grows faster than our expenses. That's why you had an inflection point to turn cash flow positive. Secondly, because we have no royalties and we own the margins in manufacture, this is a very high margin company. Hence, it doesn't take that much revenue growth for us to produce a profit. And that's what we've been trying to highlight. Now, down the track, obviously, in our financials, we'll start to increase our transparency around segment reporting, countries and products, but it's just not the right time to do that now.
Okay, great. We've got a lot of questions incoming. So one for Paul, should investors still expect a step change in revenue in financial year 26?
Yeah, look, I mean, I think that what we've done is to really lay the foundations. This is greater access to hospitals, greater access to surgeons. And so when we're seeing each of these VAC committees, these 70-odd VAC committees being submitted, it's important to note that those VAC submissions are done with the backing of 2 surgeons from the hospitals in which they are done. And so we're building our surgeon base, we're building our hospital base. And as sure as night follows day, we're going to see an increase in our revenue as a result of those activities.
And Paul, just further to that, when do you anticipate engaging distributors to cover the remaining 60% of the USA?
Yeah, so that's active right now and is ongoing. I mentioned in the presentation, I just was fortunate enough to spend some time with our 2 latest distributors that have been added. One is San Diego and the other one is Los Angeles. And so the West Coast expansion is continuing. We're actually in the process of looking at another distributor in the San Francisco area. So in answer to that question, there is no downtime. We continue to look for high quality distributors at all time, and that has been quite active. And I think what's really important to note is the quality of these distributors. These are people that are very professional. They have very high quality products in their bag already, and our product is highly complementary. So there's a degree of excitement from them about this product and how it's going to go in their bag.
And just back to Australia and the launch of SmartGraft, which was expected in calendar year 2025, seeking some clarity on what may have caused the delay and when investors can expect an update from the TGA.
Yeah, so thanks for that question. That process is ongoing. The discussions with the TGA are ongoing. It has taken longer than we would have expected, but we're looking forward to providing updates, to the market in the near future. But I think what's really important to note is that, with that comment around winning in the Americas, and I don't want anybody to think that we're distracted in any way. We're totally focused on the United States market. We're totally focused on building that hockey stick revenue opportunity. We're totally focused on the largest healthcare market in the world and the enormous opportunity that lays in front of our company there.
And Paul, just from Jason, are you satisfied with the VAT conversion rate? Have you encountered any specific pushback or common themes with pending or rejected applications that might inform your strategy moving forward?
Great question, and I'm delighted to say that we haven't had any rejections, no knockbacks with our VAT committees. We've had a very professional package, a very complete package, and one that has a very strong pricing strategy as well that provides us with access to these hospitals. And so in answer to that question, very happily we haven't had any knockbacks and we're really delighted with the progress. Important to note, right, that some of the VAT committees meet quarterly, some of the VAT committees meet half yearly, and some of the VAT committees meet on a yearly basis. So there are some differences between those committees and we're just working our way through those, but really delighted with the progress that we're making there.
Great. And is the company on track to achieve the target of over 100 VAC approvals by the end of this financial year, in your opinion?
Yeah, I think it is. I mean, I think we've got, if you look at, we've moved from 40 to 70 in a couple of months. We're looking to driving towards that number. It's very important that when you do your VAT committees, you then have the distributors in place and the wherewithal in place to manage those accounts. And so we're making sure that we pair those up really nicely.
Right. Question from Manu for John. Can you express your views on the level of institutions participating in the share registry? What potentially could we do better in terms of support and validation there?
Yeah, thank you. So first thing to state is in the last 2 years, the register of investors at Orthocell has changed considerably, with institutional and high net worth investors now over 20%. And I think some 2 years ago that was 5 or 6%. So we continue to see a strengthening of the register, more institutions, more high net worth investors. And clearly as we get that revenue growth and you head closer into profit, and as you also come up, an important thing to recognise is that a lot of investment funds require companies to be past a certain market cap or into profit. So you'll see this continually change. As I say, the register is strengthened considerably. We expect that to continue, and we also expect that as we come into a cash flow positive state, then you'll see another ramp of significant investment from institutions. But we're really happy with the progress.
And just a question from an anonymous participant, John. Are there any future plans of becoming a publicly traded company in the US?
Firstly, if that was the case, we wouldn't be able to disclose it. So the question's always, what can you disclose and what can't you? But just to be clear, no, we're listed on the ASX, focus on revenue and profit here, get ourselves into the ASX 300 is the real target. And then from there, you work out on, what are the company strategies to go forward. But the last thing you'd want the management team and the board focusing on today is increased costs of dual listing. I mean, they're strategies that don't help the fundamental of the business. That's just a strategy to become dual listed. No, we're focused on revenue, then profit, and then we'll look further on what the next steps for the company strategy are.
Thanks, John. And we've got about probably 5 minutes left for those wanting to stay on the line. The investment in marine biomedical appears to be outside the strategy of pursuing global market penetration for Remplir. Why make an investment which results in such a small minority position, and how should it be seen within the broader company strategy?
So the first thing to state, which is we know, and especially with such a great founder like Paul and Professor Zeng, who I should acknowledge has recently received an Order of Australia, and so a public congratulations to him. These guys know how long it takes to develop technology. And it's quite common in the pharmaceutical, biotech, and now also tech industry. If someone is already well down the development path on a product, then it's better to invest in that than try and always develop your own. Now, secondly, on strategy, the bone substitute product is aligned with trauma, nerve repair, and what happens in the market. So for us, the bone substitute product, and people might not have picked up, but in our dental use with striate, that is a product that works hand in glove with a bone substitute. So for us to have a 12% share of a company that's located in the same state, in the same country, I'm really, really proud of the investment. The board's 100% behind it. And to know that they're about to lodge a 510K FDA, I think that, we're fully behind what we do. It's aligned, the product's aligned. So we look forward to future growth from that business.
Thank you, John. A question for Jim from Michael. Will Orthocell consider providing more granular revenue reporting? For example, Striate Global, Remplir US, Remplir ANZ, and Remplir the rest of the world?
Yeah, thanks, Hayley. We really appreciate the interest in more detailed revenue breakdown. As the business is growing, we're reviewing our segment reporting and obviously the level of transparency we start to deliver across our financial statements. But while we're doing that, we're also balancing the competitive and material considerations. So I think as we move forward, we'll update the market as we decide and adjust that segment, but we are looking at ways to deliver more transparency.
Thank you. An anonymous question for Paul. What's the status of these two outstanding regulatory submissions, Remplir for Brazil and Striate Plus for Colombia?
Yes, they're ongoing. Brazil is a market that is a very large market for Remplir. There's a lot of surgical acumen in that country, and so it's a region of high interest to us. But whilst we are going through that process, we're quite happy for that to run its course to enable us to focus on the United States market and the European market. So our focus will be in that order: US, European, Brazilian. But let's be clear, it is an exciting market and an exciting opportunity for us.
Great. Anonymous question for Paul as well. Given the differences in the US and Australian health industries, is there any reason to expect uptake in the US will be more or less than the 10% observed in Australia so far?
Yeah, look, that's a great question. And what we see and know globally is there's great synergies between surgical practice in Australia and surgical practice in the United States. The practices are the same. The techniques are essentially the same. The clinical needs are the same. The deficits of current products are the same. So there's great transference of all of our knowledge, our scientific narrative validation, and our surgical collaborations. And for instance, last year we had a US doctor here lecturing about nerve repair and the use of Remplir in the US. This year, just recently, we had an Australian surgeon in the US lecturing around his significant experience with Remplir in Australia. Both highly sought after surgeons delivering messages that show that there's great synergies between the United States and Australia. So the outcomes that we've seen here in Australia with about a 10 to 12% market share give us great comfort and great excitement about what we can achieve in the United States marketplace.
Thank you, Paul. We're coming to a close of the session. Just a question from Shane, perhaps for you, Paul. As you know, evidence development is never done. Can you talk to us about capturing longer-term, longitudinal real-world data, specifically as your US presence builds?
Research has no downtime. Just because you're approved in market doesn't mean you stop researching either in a preclinical animal model or in a human model. And we have very active programs in both of those. We recently reported to the market a post-market clinical follow-up program of some 49 patients who had received Remplir here in Australia, and we're going to be replicating that in the United States also. We're also going to be doing prospective studies with key opinion leaders and centres of excellence in the United States, and we're working our way through some of those details as we speak. So yes, absolutely, data gets continued to be built. We've got a great data platform now with published papers, post-market clinical follow-up, and a plethora of really outstanding animal work that's been designed to provide answers into the clinical community. So yes, we are forging forward with post-market analyses of our outcomes as well as prospective analyses of outcomes, which we will publish.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Paul. I think we'll conclude it there with a really positive, wonderful outlook for the company. That concludes today's Q&A. If you have any remaining questions, please direct them in writing to general@orthocell.com.au, and our team will endeavour to promptly reply. That now concludes today's webinar. Thank you all very much for joining us, and we will see you again soon.
Thanks, everyone.